there, commercial construction coffee talk fans. Thanks for chiming in. My name's David Corson. I'm your host. I'm also the publisher and editor of Commercial Construction Renovation magazine. This is what it used to look like. Oh, I got a little halo for my light, but this was the last issue I printed in August of 2021, and now we're 100% digital. This was the largest facility or restaurant that White Castle had ever built. So it was a great scoop that we got it on here. And Mike Getting, Vice President Operations Service, White Castle System, great looking issue. And let's see, this was 148 pages. And let's see what I was doing. Ooh, I was in Memphis. This was when we did our retreat in Memphis. We went out to Graceland and took everybody. And that's Elvis's wall of fame of all of his gold albums. If you haven't been out to Graceland, I hadn't been there for years. Before it was just a little house and his jet and a souvenir shop. But now they've built an amphitheater and they've built all these buildings with all of his. It is amazing what they've done out there. So you haven't been to Graceland in a while, definitely a destination point because it's amazing what they've done out there. But you know what? We went digital, haven't looked back. Don't miss the printer, don't miss the post office. Just had 3.5 million people at my site last month. And thank you to all of you finding us out there on the web. We really appreciate it. And I can't do, any of this without you. So thank you. I'm giving you the hurrah out there. So today I have two quintessential gentlemen from the great state of Kentucky. And they're in Lexington, home of the Keeneland Racetrack. Gentlemen, thank you for being our guests on Commercial Construction Coffee Talk. Say hello to our audience out there.
How you doing?
Good evening. How are you? Thanks for having us, Dave.
On over. We want you in the picture. Okay, there you go. You guys are friends. You work together. You
That's right.
Elbow. Yeah, there you go. So anyway, beautiful day down here in Atlanta. It's been raining here forever. The lake is overflowing with water, and I have not seen the sun only for a couple days over the last couple weeks. It's just been amazing. But now I swear the trees are blooming, spring's right around the corner, pollen's coming next month, and then it's summertime. So I can't believe it's almost the end of Q1. It's just crazy that where the time has gone. So gentlemen, this is the way it's going to work. You're each going to just give us a short little bio of yourself, where you grew up, where you went to school, and how you ended up where you are today. Then we'll talk about lessons learned from the roller coaster that we've been on over the last 3 to 4 years. It's amazing. It's almost been 4 years since the March 2020 shutdown. And then each one of you will leave your contact info and a positive thought or phrase, and then we'll close out this episode. So with that said, you guys can decide who wants to go first.
I guess I'll start it. Teddy Rodgers, Anderson Rodgers Construction. I grew up in Lexington, Lafayette General, high school graduate. Went to University of Kentucky, was studying engineering, decided maybe a different path for myself was to be a general contractor. Worked for a track home builder for about 9 years and then went out on my own approximately 18 years ago. This will be our 18th year in business and diversified into commercial construction in 2010. So going on 14 years in commercial construction and just rocking it out, helping build out all of Lexington.
Awesome. Todd?
Todd, I grew up here in Lexington also, a long time, old Lexington family, never really anticipated leaving here. I went to Taste Creek High School, graduated from there, went to UK College of Architecture. I never knew a time in my life that I didn't want to be an architect. Even as a child when I didn't know the word architect, I knew that I wanted to make buildings. And so it's always been a passion in the back of my head and became a career. Graduated, had just an abject commitment to go to work for one of two firms in London, England, which were great firms that I just really appreciate the work they did. Got married. My honeymoon was in London. We went to England, had 2 interviews, but no offer. So I came back, punt plan, went to Chicago, worked for SOM for a year. Went down to Charlotte, North Carolina, worked for a multidiscipline firm down in Charlotte for 2 years. But we always knew that we were coming back. We wanted to travel, work, learn in other cities, other firm types, and then bring what we learned back because this is where we wanted to live, raise our family. So came back, and in about 30 days, I'll have hit my 30th year with CMW. So it's a long-term investment with CMW.
Well, good. What great stories. It's nothing like coming, staying in where you grew up, and for those of you that have never been to Kentucky, it is one of the best kept secrets. It is beautiful, and I'll tell you, my mom lives up in Dayton, and I did the ride up with my son, and you have to go through the mountains, and it's an amazing what they did just from like a highway civil construction, knocking out all the, putting the roads through the mountains, but you go through Knoxville, and then you get up high in the mountains, and it is
Oh,
just
Black Moon, yeah.
beautiful. And then you come down into Lexington, into the flat. And if you want to see horse country and one of the most beautiful tracks ever, you got to go to Lexington because Keeneland, it should be on your bucket list. It is the most amazing facility. We did our event there a couple years back and had a great time. And but Kentucky, just beautiful. There's some really good lakes to water ski on and fishing. And uh, like I said, I lived in Louisville for a couple years, did two derbies, and it rained at both of them. Of course, the city looked beautiful all week long. Of course, it rains, and I don't care how many mint juleps you drink, it's wet and muddy, especially if you're on the infield. So, but thoroughly liked my time in Kentucky, and always like visiting it. So, uh, with that said, let's talk about March. We're coming up on the anniversary of March 2020. I look back 4 years ago. I was in Milwaukee. I was looking at hotels for my event. I had just done my 10th anniversary summit, had the most people ever attend in Jacksonville. I did my first cocktail party in Coconut Grove. We took a tour of a shopping center that was getting renovated. And then I was on the road looking at hotels. Shut down. I was supposed to go to Columbus that weekend and watch Ohio State play University of Denver in lacrosse, and then March Madness got canceled and everything got canceled, including that game. And uh, 4 years later, we've come out of the tunnel, and there's still a few little bumps and potholes that we're all going through, labor shortages, product, and but it's kind of settled out. But talk about how each of your firms, kind of weathered the storm in terms of just, operations and lessons learned that our listeners out there in commercial construction coffee talk might find of interest.
Well, I can say through that time period, one of our biggest struggles is keeping on budget and keeping on schedule. We struggle with lead times, we struggle with products, just a massive amount of inflation. You had lumber packages from the time you went, through the bid process to contract to actual construction that would sometimes go up 25, 30%. And,
If you can get it.
that's substantial. And so we extended out lead times too. So it started to become shuffling, a lot more paperwork internally. Like let's figure out if Linux is 24 weeks or whatever piece of equipment is pushed out that far. And garage doors of all things got pushed out to sometimes 40 weeks. So it was definitely a challenge to keep up with the budget, maintain, customer satisfaction and get through it to the finish line because let's just face it, everybody wants to get open and start generating revenue so they can pay for that construction project and not go belly up. So a lot of tense moments, a lot of shutdowns too in the middle of projects. We had whole crews have to quarantine for sometimes 10 days at a time. We unfortunately, there was also some deaths that had to be dealt with and along some company lines, and it was just it was an unbelievable time to live through. And looking back and reflecting, I guess if anything, internally we got better at anticipating problems, and because we were trying to forecast weeks, months, and years ahead as to when the finish lines realistically could get there and when they could start generating revenue.
Oh yeah. And listen, your story, I've heard it so many times that and it really depends on what state you're in because some states, if you were doing an outdoor highway project, you probably were able to get it done, especially if it was deemed essential. But then if you went to the state next door that had tighter regulations and you were, let's say you had a plumber where people or electrician where people are getting closer together, you weren't able to do it. It really depended on where you were.
It wasn't unique to us. We certainly know that everybody across the spectrum was dealing with it. And honestly, when you're building businesses that you're not even sure if they're going to be able to open and function and operate, like restaurants and hospitality and certain places like that, you're kind of almost fighting a losing battle anyway, because they're not sure what the end result looks like. Are they going to be able to open? Are they going to be able to operate? What kind of limitations? And then you had a diversified amount of projects to come through where people were trying to create outside spaces, and there was a rush to do it. So anybody that wanted to stay open was trying to expand and have outside patio seating and do so in a very short time frame. So we were rushed to deliver product when product wasn't readily available. So, but somehow we managed to do that. So we built new alliances and new, relationships through that in trying to find methods and techniques to get them there in a very short period of time so that they could generate revenue, because there was pretty strict, regulations this time around here.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Todd?
Yeah, we to some degree an echo of what Teddy has shared here. We as a Teddy's a more of a product provider where the service is a means to the end of the product, and we're more of an architecture service providers. We don't produce products, we produce services. And so a lot of what we put on the table is intellectual capital, and that means putting people together, and it wasn't a time to put people together. So for us, we were struggling, or not struggling, but learning to grow on kind of two fronts. One front was just how to communicate. We're used to being in an office over a table, putting ideas together, communicating directly face to face, and just that kind of pass in the hallway cross pollination that happens in that kind of environment. And then all of a sudden, everybody's isolated. About 80% of the firm was working from home. There was a few of us that just stayed in the office, and I was one of them. I have a kind of a diehard commitment to keep work in the office, and so stayed in the office. And we had to learn that communication just didn't happen the way it has historically for us, that you had to be extremely intentional and focused and scheduled and coordinated about your communication. And so we learned a lot of, and I'm sure Teddy did too, we learned a lot, some new communication skills that have really helped us now through that window of time. So that was one of them. And then of course we would have the occasional people that had to kind of back off and quarantine, basically because they just didn't feel well enough. We were already kind of instantly quarantined, and we set up a VPN, and we're able to stay connected digitally through the VPN. But then when people had to kind of physically shut down for a week or 2 weeks, then that kind of put gaps in our capacity to provide our services. And then I think if any of us had the crystal ball, we would have taken all of our investment and put it into digital communication media stocks, because the services like this right now were the exemption, not the norm, 10 years ago, and now it's the norm, not the exception. So we learned to use these tools and appreciate it. But I'll tell you, from my perspective personally, I'm not sure I can speak for everybody, but from my perspective personally, I didn't like it. Being face to face over table, reading body language, reading the room, reading a group is just a part of how I communicate personally. So trying to do that through this vision through a straw on a screen was just really a struggle for me. But you adapt and you overcome. So we did. And then on the other side, we're really back channeling through like Anderson Rodgers, where for design solutions that will meet market available product and delivery times. And so we learned really quick. There's significant delays that on certain products that we just simply weren't going to get. And so we had to create new alternate design solutions that met kind of product and product fabrication, and then in product delivery time to try to keep projects on schedule. There's nothing's a guarantee, but we would team quite a bit to get a good feel for what products are available and how quickly you can get them, and then start making design decisions based upon that. So it didn't drive everything, but it certainly was a significant contributor. So we learned a lot about how to kind of navigate on the fly.
Well, and silver linings of it is that it really didn't matter where you were anymore. Being able to communicate remotely, like I could be in Florida, which I did spend a lot of time down there due to the loosened regulations. People didn't even know I was gone. There was no, difference in, how I operate because everybody was operating through Zoom and everything else. And to kind of complement what he said, as much as it was pushing distance between us, it actually brought us together better as a team because we had to rely on one another quite a bit more. We had to find access to other possible substitutions and resources, and we had to filter it through them to make sure it was going to be applicable for what we needed. And so it's kind of unique how it brought our relationship closer together, even though we didn't get to see as much of each other face to face. And we also had to put on a personality through Zoom because you had a lot of people suffering from fatigue. I got to the point where I would get on Zoom and I'd be like, hey, I would literally start out by just trying to build some excitement because nobody's excited about communicating through a Zoom conference when you're doing it day in, day out. So I told my wife one time, I was like, I'm low on energy. I was like, because I've been just throwing it into Zoom all day just to not have these dead end meetings and to build some kind of confidence on the other end. Hey, it's all going to be all right. We're all going to come out of this at some point, and this is just the new norm.
Yeah, so now that we're out of it, Teddy, did you all take some of that kind of new communication skill stuff that you developed during that window of time and use it face to face and interactively now to a degree better than maybe once you did before?
I would certainly say.
We did. We did. I mean, personally, I did. I
couldn't have been happier to see people actually face to face, and that was genuine.
Very much so.
And that positive energy of reconnecting with people, because you did have a few people still on their hind legs like cats coming out of it. There's still a lot of people that were scared and nervous, and you still see it from time to time. And I respectfully give them their distance. But I still talk to them as if they're not wearing a mask right in front of me because I'm no longer in that mindset. But if they are, I'm okay with that's where it's at. But I treat them as if we don't have the 6 feet of distance between us anymore. So,
hey, listen, I went out and just bought my microphone, and I was going to do these podcasts on construction sites when I was going on the road, and then everything went kaput. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to wing these things and I'll do, one a week. And I look back at my first ones. I was awful. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I was just winging it. And I learn every day. I listen, I'm not Joe Rogan. So, but I got better at it. And the first thing though, from a construction point, I told my son, I said, look, everything's shut down. We don't even know how long it's going to last. We're going to go redo the deck. So I went and got got the 2x4s, the 8s, and whatever, and he and we redid the deck. But if I would have went 3 months later, that material would have been 40% more to purchase. And everybody and their mother was doing home projects. And my wife's a residential contractor, design consultant, and her business is just boomed because everybody was stuck at home trying to make their homes, and you really didn't know when you were going to travel. And to be honest with you, I'm a million miler in Delta. I didn't care if I ever got on another plane. I've been to Dallas. I've been to Vegas. I miss seeing my peeps, my friends. But all in all, so many companies, exactly what you both said, that they use the technology. And now I tell people, look, you can pick and choose where you want to go. And, but if, let's say if it's just like a little change order or something that's you got to drive an hour and a half that you can spend 5 minutes here looking at it, or whether it's a FaceTime on your phone, it just makes things so much easier for, to keep your project on schedule. And it's technology using it to the way it's never going to replace in person. It just doesn't. However, it does. People tell me all the time, oh, I'm zoomed out and whatever, but believe me, they get a lot still done on it. The toughest thing is the people that close their offices was now if you're an owner of a company and let's say you had a big office in a city, people want to go to ball games, they want to go out to restaurants, but they don't want to come back to the office because they prove themselves that they can be productive working out of their house. Some people have to be in the office just because that's their mindset. Like I was working out of the house. So it didn't faze me at all because we were basically a virtual office. And but a lot of people found out that they were more productive because they got rid of the chitter chatter by the water cooler. And I swear, some of the conversations, whether you're a brand or an architect or a contractor or vendor, some people had their best years over the last couple of years learning how to fine tune their company, get everything in place from an infrastructure point of view, and then letting their people do their thing. And now it's kind of just, which way do I want to go? Maybe I need to downsize because I don't need all the office space, or people like coming, it goes company to company. But so many companies said, I had some of the best years over the last couple of years. I could have better if I could have had more PMs or superintendents and, to get projects done, because you don't want to bite off more than you can chew, because you don't know if you're going to either get either the product A, or B, you're going to have the labor to get things done, which is kind of the void right now. Just
Yeah, you got some really solid points, and one to go back to, you said, I mean, like the residential side of our business boomed through that time period.
People were building the sanctuaries.
I called it the
Everybody wanted a sanctuary
staycation.
home. Yeah.
Like everybody was building places that they could live and they could be and that they could enjoy, because there was no vacationing. So that vacation money was being spent to make their home their vacation. And
we did more pools and pool houses during that window of time.
Yeah.
Not sure, it might be hot tub like. It's good for a couple of years, and then I don't know what we're doing with it anymore. But we did a lot of that stuff. It's
unbelievable. I put a tap in somebody's kitchen, and I thought that was the coolest thing, because it kind of segmented everything that we were seeing. It's like people want to be in their space now, because they no longer were wanting to be in a bubble where they're out amongst a bunch of people. They were wanting to be in their bubble. And so they did some of the most unique construction projects residentially through then, and we absolutely boomed. And had we had more people and the ability to capture more, I certainly feel like we would have done more. There was also still a shock and awe factor. Like, people were just blown away with how expensive things got during that time period. The deck thing you talked about earlier. I mean, there was people, the meme is like, I'm going to go build myself a $25,000 deck, and you see a little 8x4 deck outside of the door, and that perfectly, displayed what we were seeing back then. Because what do you do? It's not like we're raking people over the coals. It's not like we're making a whole bunch more money for presenting it to them like this. But the cost of it was there. But at the same time, they were so desperate to get something, because they were lacking so much else, that they were putting a lot of their passion into these projects, and it rang through. So we saw that. And then your point on the businesses, I was joking. I talked to a lot of other CEOs and try to gain outside perspective, and he's telling me they were on a meeting call. Everybody's screens blanked out, and he started calling out some of his salespeople. The first salesperson he called out laying in his bed with his laptop on his side, and like.
At least he wasn't naked, right?
Yeah, at least he wasn't naked. And then he was
a little too comfortable.
After that, he said, what? I didn't ask anybody else to turn their screen on. He said, I just decided, what? Let's leave the screens off, and let's continue the sales call meeting. So his guy didn't try to hide anything. But some people, I don't think will ever come back and don't like to be there. Me personally, working from home, background distractions, the refrigerator too close. That there was a lot of things that I didn't like being that near. I'd rather be at the office where there's not a bunch of snacks laying around and there's not a bunch of distractions, dogs barking and all that. I like to work in silence. So it was kind of even actually peaceful that there was nobody there when I was at the office.
Yeah,
Nonetheless, that it's kind of, again, it's not unique. It's everybody kind of went through the same thing, but it's kind of funny hearing all those similar experiences, because like we can all relate.
Hey, listen, I was a print face-to-face guy, and like I said, my whole world was turned upside down. I was fighting with my printer, and I said, look, half my circulation is furloughed or their offices are closed. You're asking me to print all this postage and paper. It's just going to get thrown in the trash. It might not be delivered. And he's like, Dave, you've been a publisher forever. You understand economy scales. Once the press is set up, it's just added ink and paper. And so I bit the bullet, and I printed that March, April issue, and then I kind of sat up. I get up in the middle of the night. My wife's like, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "I got to think, what I was going to do." But I was lucky, because way back when I created my digital magazine, so I had content, and I didn't realize I had all that stuff, but I ignored it. It was like listen, nothing against it was like my stepchild. I don't know. I kind of ignored it, and it was just there, and it was being built with 24/7, and my artist and my editor came to me and they said, look, let's just go digital, and we'll do a very small press run just for the people that are on the cover or the advertisers to keep them happy, and we'll see how things go. And just like the podcast, I started doing it every week, and then my stats started to go, and then I just kind of made my transformation from print face to face to digital. And now I'm a completely different company than it was 3 or 4 years ago. And I thought I knew a lot, but I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about my customers. I learned a lot from my customers, actually, and just having these conversations. But it was dicey when I was eating after 20 years of printing the magazine. I was like, oh my God, are people going to stick with me? Are they going to like it? Now, no one even, my son, he doesn't know what a magazine is. He looks at it on his phone or his tablet or whatever. It's just, like I said, I miss holding it, but
Yeah.
I'm still a builder. I build it digitally, but you know, it, uh, it was very, very scary. And but looking back, I'm so glad I did make the decision. And you had to turn on, listen, you had to, put it in lacrosse terms, man, you had to pivot, man. I hate using that word because it's used so much, but you had to stick your cleat in the turf or the grass and make that turn, and then put your blinders on and just go for it. But
I
so
think
many
it was scarier than it was difficult. No,
Yeah,
honestly,
yeah, and
we
and,
were
and a
all,
lot of companies, yeah. I mean,
we're all terrified of what that looked like. But the transition wasn't that hard. It was just
no, no,
was
no.
committing to it. Once you did, you realized it wasn't that scary and it wasn't that dangerous, and it actually, honestly, it probably projected us into the realm that we probably already should have been in. We were just behind the times because we all like. I'd much rather be sitting across from you doing this, and I enjoy the face to face, and
Oh yeah,
I love people. I network for a living, to a degree. I'm in networking groups and I'm in all these organizations. And we met on the ground, and that's how we built this relationship. And so, building relationships through Zoom, it's not natural, and it didn't feel natural. So the transition was scary, and ultimately, I had to kind of fake it until I actually really did feel like I was able to connect through a screen to somebody, and I got ultimately good at it, which only helped my face to face that much more.
But even sitting side by side here right now was a product of the same thing. We talked this morning. You're going to be at your office. I'm going to be at mine. What are we going to do? No, let's
do it together.
Let's get together and do it. I mean, we had that conversation about do we do it remotely or do we do it together? And yeah, way better to do it together.
Absolutely.
yeah. I had a guy last week. They did this thing that on these holograms they're doing, and Dan was in outside of Denver, and the other guy was in somewhere up in the Northeast, and but sometimes they're together, and so actually I like having two people on there, and it's a little change of pace other than the one-on-one, and so like I said. When I had my mic, I was going to do these things on the construction site, and then I was just forced into it. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go do it. And I got a good story though. When my son and I drove up for my sister's 60th birthday, and uh, we had to stop in Georgia. The mask thing, they didn't make it. They didn't make it. I didn't even wear one,
I don't know.
and but I had to get gas in Kentucky right when I came down into Lexington. And I went into the convenience store. I forget what it was. Anyway, I had to go to the bathroom, and while he was filling the truck up, and she's like, "Sir, you can't come in here." I'm like, "Why not?" She goes, "Oh, you need to have your mask on." I'm like, "Really?" Okay, so I went and got it, and then in Ohio they had their own regulations, and so we went in. They had the no one was at the front desk. They had everything. With technology. And then I went up to my room, and they had the sanitation little piece of paper on the door, and you go in, and I hadn't been in a hotel forever. I mean, it had been a long time since I've been on the road, and I said, God, this is just so much different, traveling wise, and but people got used to it, and then gradually, we kind of came out. It's amazing that was all 4 years ago. That all that
That's more recent than maybe we think.
it feels like it was yesterday. Am I right?
Really interesting. One of my cabinet makers shipped thousands of plexiglass panels for countertop shields all over the country.
Yeah, sneeze guards. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, sneeze guards and of course, it's funny. Of course, you could just reach right around him and hand him the money or step to the side and talk to him. But he shipped thousands of those because he wasn't sure what was going to happen. He was trying to adapt on the fly, and I commend him for doing it. I'm sure he made good money. I remember one of his bigger accounts was like some cruise ships and Wolf Lodge or whatever that big place.
Oh, the guys up in the Midwest. Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
And so he made an adaptation, and I looked into it. I was like, is there enough revenue money here? But honestly, with the demand from the residential customer and really not so much slow in the commercial, other than a knee-jerk reaction, that was kind of the only thing. 3 weeks to 4 weeks, there was kind of this pause where everybody's going, what's this look like? Like people were laying people off, people were holding projects, millions of dollars suspended in projects. But then once that 3 or 4 weeks was up, it was like, okay, now we resume, and it
Yeah, it's
just
time to
didn't
get back.
have the impact we were expecting.
You know, you bring up one of the concerns that I had. It was kind of beneath the horizon concern that I had, and that is that the more I talk to people and interact with people, the more I got concerned that that this was going to be the new norm, and it's not the new norm. We will survive and move on from this. And in this kind of culture of new norm, cottage industry was beginning to develop based upon the kind of the triage and panic of the new norm. And I ward over that personally, and then in interpersonally when I'm talking to other people about it, so just be careful how much egg you put in that basket there, because this is not the new norm. We will survive and move on from this. And if you're going to try to build cottage industry out of this, it's going to be one, very short lived, and two, it's going to artificially prolong the culture of panic, and we don't emerge from it for an extended period of time. And so it's not that I had problems with anybody making any money, in the process, because we've all got to still put bread on our tables at a very difficult time. But be careful that we don't create this artificial cottage industry that's based on something as ethereal as panic. And so when we talk about the challenges through this window of time, that was one of the challenges that I faced personally.
Yeah, no. Listen, my wife's like, she didn't even know what to do with me because I was on the road, and she's like, "Oh my God, when are you going on the road?" I'm like, "Where would you like me to go? I can't go anywhere. I'm stuck here, babe. There's nothing I can do about it, you know." And you know, I, where am I gonna go? And
Well,
it,
it definitely tested a lot of marriages. How much time can you spend together and still really deeply care about one another? And it's kind of interesting the challenges that created as well. And so you really figured out how well you liked one another during that time period.
Yeah. I told my wife, she's already married once. I said, "Look, I'm only getting married once, okay? So I'm an old dog. I'm not gonna change, and it is what it is. 95% is negotiable. That 5%, it's not. So, you know, uh, I'll tell you,
So you
we
got
were
a
talking.
similar story to me. I told Gail, I said, there's two things in the world that I do once: get married and buy a house. Anything else that's pleasing in the eyes of the Lord after that, I'm good for a second go. But you're stuck with me, honey.
Yeah. So we were talking lacrosse, so that season, that year, that first year, well, the men's league play in the summer and we play in the winter, spring, and everybody coaches and all that. So out of the two seasons before, things kind of settled into place, there were about 250 guys in the league down here. It's called Old Guys Lacrosse, OGL. Anyway, we didn't get anybody sick. Did all the protocols. We still played, and we didn't do the shaking of the hands at the end of the game and stuff. But we didn't. No one got sick in all of those games. And there were some guys out there playing with their mask on or whatever. But like you said, that's your call if you wanted to wear it or not. And but it listen, yeah, you got to roll with the punches. I always look at it. The glass is always half full or is it half empty? I will always look at it as, hey, listen, I'm glad to have a glass, but if it is, I'm going to think it's half full, and it's going to be full of awesome stuff. So I looked at talking to all these people that went through all this. Like I said, they turned a negative into a positive. Now, as they look back, just like you guys were reminiscing, that if it didn't happen, you wonder what you would have missed that you know now today that you didn't know back then, and probably made you a more fluid, a more efficient company. And I'm telling you, all these stories I've heard over the years, I can look back at the videos and stuff and say, wow, look at that. And but I was just talking to an engineer. He's like, I have 75 positions open that I can't fill. I can't find people to fill. So that's like the biggest thing right now is just finding. Like I just launched my student newsletter. It's called Construct EDU. I just had it in my latest issue. It's trying to entice people to get their kids, whether you're a girl or a boy, between fifth and eighth grade, or at least freshman, sophomore in high school, to get that seed to think about becoming, doing construction, a welder, HVAC tech, whatever it might be. And my son went through aviation mechanic school. He works for Boeing, and he went the skilled trades route. And so I lived it. And so we're on this big push of, just trying to get that seed. If we can, plant one or two seeds to get some kids to think about construction or becoming a plumber and becoming a millionaire and writing your own ticket, it's an amazing career that you can do. And not everybody's made to go to, University of Kentucky for 4 years or
I didn't.
whatever.
I I dropped out to be a builder, and just so you know, the BIA. So we have a Building Institutes of America here locally that started a trade program, 100% placement. Anybody that goes through that job, that training is coming out and having a job and a well-paying job, and most of them are working before they ever even complete the program. Because if they've got the drive and the willingness to show up and learn, then somebody's scooping them up at every stop. And I mean, that's that kind of draw. They're running classes, every year. It's a 2-year program. They're running it through, and that's the BIA trade program. I'm gonna do a drop for them. The BIA trade program in
No, hey,
Lexington.
listen,
I'm telling you, that is the best thing that's going to happen to some of these kids. Yeah.
I'm going to send you my newsletter. We'll get the BIA guys, we'll put their banner on there. And
Yeah.
because, like I said, the whole labor thing, and I just, not everybody's made to go to school, for 4 years. And some of
That's a very unpopular position. We have done it to ourselves culturally, telling ourselves that we've got to steer our kids into university educations because a degree is the only way you're going to make your way in the world, and it's always that catch if you fall, and it's simply not true. And especially today, where the cost of a college education is exceedingly, I mean, I'm talking about 3,000% more for the degree that I have you pay today than you did when I graduated in 1989. It's a 3,000% increase in cost at the university that I went to, which is a pretty economical university. Who can pay for that? Who can pay off? Will you generate a job that will yield an annual salary that will enable you to pay off that kind of student loan debt and still be able to make your way in the world? And the answer is a 4-year degree in Romanesque painting is going to sink you, and you just got to be really careful. The glut in skilled trades we did to ourselves, and so I just totally appreciate what Teddy was just saying about just allow the encouragement of take on skilled trades because great livings can be made, and also we get kids that actually learn how to do things with their hands rather than.
Yeah. No, my son was tinkering with cars, and he was flipping motorcycles and this and that, and he didn't have the grades. I had to drag him out of there to be at school at 7 in the morning. He was an excellent lacrosse player. He probably could have gotten recruited, and they had a shop class, and we met with the school for, in his junior year. I said, look, if there's one kid out of 3,500 people that go to the school that you want to put in that shop class, it's him. Oh, Mr. Course, he doesn't have his mathematics. I go, look, he'll figure it out. He's not interested in history. He's not in English. He wants to work with his hands. And so they wouldn't put him in the program. So you know what I did? I yanked him out. He worked at the garage. He waited tables, and he went online and got his degree. And first he was going to be an auto tech. I said, look, if you don't own your own shop, you're not going to make the money. And he goes, well, I'll work on motorcycles. I go, well, once again, you got to have your own shop, but you have to do it in some place warm where they ride it all year long. And then we took the tour of the aviation school, which was an old grocery store that had been sitting there dormant just south of us. And they have about 20 schools around the country. But there, it was a 2-year program. It was $46,000. And then you went and got your A&P license, which takes about a year to take the 5 tests. But he learned welding, sheet metal, woodworking, avionics, everything. I mean, you should have seen the curriculum when I go up there, and he did it all online, and he would go down to school a couple days a week. And now he's working on $350 million airplanes at Boeing. And, it's night and day, but not everybody's made to get. Look, I was a hockey lacrosse player, so that's why I did the 5-year plan. I took a year off and worked up on the mountain in Vail. And but I was really a sports guy. I was economics and political science. Do I use that stuff today? Yeah, partially. But But I saw my son go through the 2-year program, and I was like, that was the best thing that ever, that because he was not built to go to college. He just wasn't.
You just made a great point, and I think you've got to be brash enough as a parent to recognize what you're working with. Not all kids are going to be academic learners. A lot of them are visual learners. And honestly, my dad looked at my brother and he's like, "There's no way I'm paying for you to go to college," and he was hardcore enough to say that. And you know what? That's because my brother was a fifth year senior before he decided to, take a different path. And I told my daughter's boyfriend just the other day, I was like, have you considered trade programs? Because you can come out in a couple of years making probably twice as much as kids are going to come out in 4 years making just by going and learning a trade. If you don't mind working with your hands, you don't mind working a little physical, because the work ethic's what you can't teach. Everything else, the skilled labor and everything else can be taught. But these visual learners, I actually read a book not too long ago, and I credit that to giving me this kind of perspective. But it said, think about the guy that developed the Colt 45. That guy didn't have a 4 years of math and didn't go through 3 sessions of physics and all the technical learning that you have to go. He could imagine and picture it. And that's a lot of these welders, and that's a lot of these other people is they can see it in their head. They just can't look at the numbers and the math and the formulas and work that stuff out. So you got to show some appreciation to these visual learners and put more trade programs back in schools and start recognizing the talent that you got, because not all kids can be taught the same. And be a brash enough parent to look at your kid and go, you know what, you're not really college material, but I'll pay for you to go learn some skilled labor or some skilled trade, because you still don't necessarily have to go out and work physical all day to learn a skilled trade and to be able to go in and learn in a different method. And so I won't credit that as my personal thinking. That's just perspective I've gained through some of the books I've read. And
well, when it really was my editor, he came up with it. I'm like, yeah, sure, we'll put it in there. And we send them out, when we do a new issue, we send it out to 125,000 people. They all have kids. They're in construction, but they might know someone else that has a kid and maybe doesn't know what he wants to do. And I just kind of put it in my little intro that, hey, this is a student news that we're doing these twice a month. We're sending them out, but if you know someone who has a kid, send it to them. Let them look at it, because if we get one here and one there, the sum is always bigger than the whole, and we need workers. I mean, just in the airline industry, just said there are 600,000 maintenance techs that are going to retire over the next 5 or 10 years, and you can't leave these planes sitting on the tarmac. When everything got shut down in March 2020, all the planes, if you were a maintenance tech, you had job security because they all had to get maintained. You can't just let them sit. And so my thing was, hey, listen, if we'll put this thing out and we want people to share it, not because I want the hits and all that. We want tradespeople, because if we don't do something about it, construction is going to be hurting in 10, 15 years when
hurting now. No, I would say it's hurting now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm just saying it's going to be, it's just going to multiply.
Yeah,
if
absolutely. No,
it's going to exponentially grow, because we're all picking from the same pool, and it's small. Most of the talented people have a job. And that was kind of a weird, strange, hard thing through COVID that I didn't even talk about, is that people were pirating employees. I lost a lot of employees through that time period to companies who paid substantial increases because they had the work demand and they needed the bodies. And so they were paying them, well above. And I pay well. We do not, mistreat anybody over here. We want good, happy workers. We pay an above average compensation to our employees. And I'll tell you what, man, they were pirating my people left and right. I had so many people leave during that time period. So one of the struggles we dealt with that wasn't even discussed was that, the pool of people that you're picking from. If I put out an ad on Indeed or something along those lines, I'm going to get the same applicants that I've already gotten 5 other times, and I've already tried to qualify, who don't have the experience, don't necessarily have the work ethic, but they're just shopping for a job that might pay them more without really the skills and credentials to back it. So the pool of that small pool, we're all picking from it. And I try really hard not to pirate people's, from other companies. I don't like that. If they come to me, that's one thing. But these I don't know what do they call them, where they go around finding people who aren't happy. Yeah, headhunters, and I don't like that. I don't much appreciate that.
Well, like I said, we put this newsletter out. I just did the inaugural one in this issue, and we did blast, and I'm doing them, quite, we'll do it as long as we need to, and we're not. It's more of a PSA, public service announcement than anything with us. But like I said, I lived it with my son, and just that, there's X amount of kids out there that could make a serious career of working with their hands, no matter what you're doing. So, well, as we finish up. Uh, if there was one positive thought or phrase that each one of you would like to leave with our listeners out there, what would it be as we go into finish Q1 and go into Q2 and the remainder of 2024?
That there's a prosperous year and future ahead of us. The work is out there. It's there's more out there than any of us can handle, and so we need those young up and coming people to come put in the effort, get your hands dirty. I started sweeping out houses in construction and in the trenches, and before that, I labored for a masonry company. And there's nothing wrong with any of that. It all paid good. Yes, it was hard labor, but you sure respected and appreciated yourself when you got home because you were tired and you slept well and you got up feeling some pride in yourself. So my positive message is, it's out here. If you want it, come get it. We will welcome you with open arms, and we'll teach you a thing or two.
Todd, what's your phrase?
I'm ready to join. Ready to join that. He pays good too. He says. Oh gosh, you mentioned that, and I just kind of had it rattle in the back of my head, and so I'm going to take a bit of a different track from Teddy. On the edge of sleep just a couple weeks ago, I just kind of became re-alerted at what I would consider kind of an epiphany, and what had struck me was that the older I get, the less concerned I am with what's on the horizons of my imagination that might be true. And the more focused I am on what's been right in front of me all along that I never saw or never understood. And I think the reason that I just kind of got back out of bed and went to my phone and entered that really quick so I didn't forget on the edge of sleep was that's been rattling around in my head for a while, but I really hadn't kind of codified it yet. And once I kind of codified that, it began to help organize other thoughts, not at all unlike some of the thoughts that Teddy just, but it gave me a sharper lens to look through to solve problems. And for me, creativity is my stock and trade. That's what I do. I create ideas, and so my imagination is my skill set and my tool chest. So it's not that I've got an issue with what's on the horizons of my imagination. It's just that I've become more focused on what's already right in front of me that I hadn't seen yet. That if I really understood, I might be doing a better job at what I do. So that's that. For what it's worth, there's my 2 cents.
All right, gentlemen. So if someone wanted to talk construction or design architecture or see how you make a mint julep in Kentucky, how would they reach out to each one of you?
So our website is best way to contact us. It's got a form. It gives a great explanation. You can meet our team through there. It's AndersonandRodgers.com. The commonly missed thing there is RODGERS, but I bought the domain for ROGERS as well because it's so misspelled that if you look me up, even incorrectly, you will still find my website, and that's going to be the best way to contact us. We always have a landline too. Those things still exist. 859-309-3021. But check out our website, see what we do. Become a fan, like us on Facebook, Instagram, any of that, because we put some cool stuff out there. We definitely would love more followers, love more audience, because we like to share. Can't help but like to highlight what we do because we love what we do.
Scott, contact info?
Contact for us is, again, website's not a bad way to do it. We have a very good website that gives a really good definitive expose of what we do, what we've done, what we can do, who we are. And it's CMWAEC.com. And so you can get us on our website. Just reach out to us personally via the phone, 859. What?
Do you use that landline
I don't even
anymore?
use that landline anymore, hardly.
Yeah.
It's the phone
It's on the website. There you
phone number's
go.
on the
It's on
website.
the
Yeah.
website.
No, phone number's on the website, but we're not secret. We're accessible. We work all over the nation. I do a huge amount of hospitality design work, commercial for-profit development. Our firm does a lot of criminal justice, judicial, working on a fantastic new amphitheater project right now in guest service development for that right now. And so it's and then of course our equine division is our international. Yeah, that's our international division.
That's where we connect, and
yeah.
we do a lot of business. And of course, you know that about Kentucky. Between the bourbon and the horses, you know, we'd invite anybody listening to it to come check out Lexington. It's the most beautiful part of Kentucky, and check out the Bourbon Trail, check out the horses. You know,
not a bad eating city.
It's a damn good food city too.
Yeah.
Now, like I said, I had a great time in Lexington. So listen, everybody out there in Commercial Construction Coffee Talk, all right? They gave you the websites. If you're looking for a contractor, if you're looking for a design person that's got a vision, etc., and you haven't been to Lexington before, get on the plane, get in your car, whatever, go up and see these gentlemen, and they're going to be able to take care of you. If anybody wants to reach me, I'm at David C at ccr-mag.com. And look, we look at everything. Listen, they reached out. We found a time. Now they're on. This has been a great interview. And it's like playing the lottery. If you don't buy a ticket, you can't win. You don't reach out to me. You don't send me something. Very tough to get in the magazine, but we post stuff every day. And it could be an anniversary. It could be a new product launch. It could be a charity event that you're doing. It could be a project, you know, a case study on something that you've done. We look at everything. And listen, over the last 4 years of the roller coaster, people had lives other than work. So I put stuff on there, how to buy the right insurance, what's the best cell phone. I even have what are the right hair extensions. You know, if women are wearing them, hey, there's some guys who want to wear them too these days. You know, I have that kind of stuff up there. All right. I've diversified, you know, not just construction, you know. So but if you don't send me something, I can't look at it. You know, and if we post it, I send you the URL. I ask you to share it. It's a win-win. And everybody can find you, you know, on Google versus, you know, your SEO score, search engine optimization, for those who don't know what that is. And so send me something. Let us be the judge. But, you know, if we find you a place and I answer all my emails and, you know, we'll get it done. I have a digital page for my digital agency that I've just launched, and I've been nurturing every night. And I have to put these quotes on. But I just put one up the other night. I just did my video on it, and it is, you know, winners always find a way to win, and quitters always find a way to quit. And it just kind of, you know, my DNA. I'm not a quitter, man. I finish what I start, and I just kind of hit home with me. And you know, you just got everything's mindset. Don't surround yourself with negative people. Positive and keep your blinders on and just get her done. And so with that said, a couple things. Number one, if you're on the construction site, we want you to be safe. We want you to get home, okay? So you can have dinner with your kids, your wife, your husband, your partner, call whatever you want, catch some Z's and be able to go do it, you know, all over again the following day. Number two, we want you to stay hydrated. Okay, I got my electrolytes in here. I'm going to go run 5 miles when I get done off this. And if you don't stay hydrated, you get headaches. The athlete talking coach here, and the same thing happens on the construction site. The temperatures are going to start getting warmer here, and if you don't stay hydrated, you get headaches. That's where accidents happen. So make sure you're hydrated, you know, on the site, and be safe. And number three, hit the like button. We want to get the algorithms out there so they can hear this Kentucky story from these two gentlemen. Okay, they both have really you know, good stories. And like I said, Lexington is one of the best kept secrets as far as I'm concerned, you know, right there in the Midwest. So with that said, gentlemen, pleasure. When I come back up there, I'm going to look you up. All right. And
Absolutely.
We'll do a bourbon tour.
That's right.
And Todd, I'm bringing my lacrosse stick, you know, because you know, you started that lacrosse, you know,
still got him in the garage.
You know, I'm you know, so with that said, gentlemen, say goodbye from Lexington.
Well, goodbye. Great to see you. Thanks for having us on.
No, absolutely. And I'm going to sign off from Sugar Hill, just below the Buford Dam by Lake Lanier, probably about 30 miles north of downtown ATL. Everybody, it's TGIF tomorrow. the weekend and on, next week's a whole nother week. So remember, over the weekend, recharge your battery, clear your mind of all the negativity, think positive thoughts, and get ready for another fabulous week next week of getting things done. So with that said, we will see you all next time on another episode of Commercial Construction Coffee Talk. And gentlemen, thank you so much again for being our guests, and I'll see you in Kentucky. Cheers, everybody. All right.
Cheers.
See ya.